Hello and welcome to the latest in the Leaders with Ambition podcast series. Today, I am absolutely delighted to welcome my guest, Leslie O'Leary. Leslie is Chief Operating Officer at Charles Russell Speechley, and it is going to be a really interesting conversation today. It will see us start Leslie's career, or actually start where Leslie grew up in the Isle of Skye. Taking us all the way to her present role now as COO, and there's some really interesting stories that she'll share along the way for us. And one of the things I think is really great about Leslie from the time that I've spent with her is that she's a real leader, and she'll talk about that, that transitioning piece from managing people to leading people, and it is different. And I know that she's incredibly well respected by her peer group and also by her teams as well. So I think that speaks volumes for leadership capabilities. There's also, I think, this real sense with Leslie of how hard she's worked throughout her career. She worked incredibly hard to get her first roles. And really, she advocates that for people. Enjoy your jobs, but work really hard to make sure that you're giving your true and best self at work. And as part of that, I think it's this real sense of not only just striving for the roles that you want, but, having the confidence to ask for it as well. As long as you've got capabilities, ask for that role and make sure that you're getting the assistance you need to drive forward. We'll touch on networking. We'll touch on the power of sponsorship and mentoring, which is something that Leslie's experienced herself and also paid forward. And there'll be some key takeaways for what's happening for COO in law firms as well at the moment. So lots of interesting bits for us to touch on. But without further ado, Leslie, over to you to bring your career history to life for us.
Thanks, Nikki. It was a pleasure to be here. I've listened to some of the other sessions that you've recorded with some familiar faces and names. So, yeah, it's a great series and I'm delighted to have been asked to join this one. Right, where did it all start? I'm what's known as a tuchter. So I'm from the Highlands of Scotland, from an island called the Isle of Skye. And I, grew up there. Family are still there. And sort of grew up in an environment where it was a family business that my parents had. So learned the sort of work ethic from them. It's very different lifestyle in terms of location from where I live and work now, mostly down in the southeast of the UK. But it was a great start in life. I was the first of my family to graduate from uni. My mum couldn't actually speak English until she went to school. So she spoke something called Gaelic. So it was a very different, very rural, completely different kind of start in life. I didn't know any different. But I was quite clear that I wanted to not spend all of my life there, that there was a whole world out there. I think folk that grow up in rural places usually are quite well travelled because you have to be. You've got to go quite far to get anywhere. So it was a great sort of start in life. And, I've been traveling. I've sort of lived in Trinidad and traveled through South America for 6 months. And there's a whole world out there. And I just want to see as much as I can. Mum and dad were, this is the 70s because I am ancient, were probably quite progressive as parents. They never really treated us like children. We always had a view. They treated us like human beings, and I think that stuck with me as well. They had a real sort of focus around, not resting on what you've been given, to learn something new every day, to support people, to push and drive and change and to matter. So those kind of things stuck with me as well.
Great. That's a great mantra, Leslie, isn't it? It's really a strong, powerful message from your parents. I know very inspirational characters for you.
Yeah, they definitely are. And they're still around and they haven't a clue what I do day to day. But they're still around and, you can talk to them about anything. And it's a good relationship. They're parents and they're also friends now as well.
So you first started, you as you mentioned, you went to university, which was a really great experience for you, then did some travelling. And then you decided you needed to get a job. Pay for all of this stuff.
It's very expensive. It is very expensive. So yes, university was something I always wanted to do because it's about the education piece and sort of making myself better than I started, continually evolving that. But I messed up my hires. So I went through clearing to get into university, but I knew I wanted to do a business degree. Loved that. Loved the whole experience of learning, and that stuck with me as well. But yes, as you say, traveling and wanting to be part of the world and sort of pay my own way definitely became important. So back in those days, you applied for jobs through newspapers. That's how it used to work. And that's what I did. So I got a first start in an engineering firm in Edinburgh, and it was a sort of marketing type of office as well for this engineering firm. But I was doing everything from taking in the milk and the photocopying. You know, it's an entry level job, but there are great people there who you could learn from, role models, you know, and people that always encouraged you. And I think that's just a brilliant way to be as somebody who's running a business. You know, you want to learn and bring people on as well. So enjoyed that. I had an amazing boss at the time, a guy called Derek Mills, it was a Welsh-based company, but I worked in their Edinburgh office, and he encouraged me to go to head office when an opportunity came up. So I've always worked with people that have encouraged you, never really thought of the fact that if you leave, you're going to cause more headaches for them because they have to backfill the role, etc., etc. And I've tried to sort of keep that with me today. You want people to have great experience while you're working together, but also accept the fact that people move on. But the memories hopefully are good when you move on. So I moved to head office in Cardiff. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have met my husband, who was in that part of the world as well. It was a really exciting time. It was when Cardiff Bay was being developed, and it was just a brilliant place to be and to continue to learn. I then stayed in the sort of real estate sector and moved across. I was working for Balfour Beatty at the time, and then one of their clients headhunted me, basically asked if I'd like to come and work for them, which I did. So I always had an itch about London and wanting to go and work in the big smoke. Don't know what I thought it would be, but I guess it seemed pretty exotic given where I started in life. And I was turning 30 and saw a job advertised in the Sunday Times for a business called Helium Baker, as it was back then. It's now Cushman & Wakefield. Applied for the job and was lucky enough to get that. So that's what happened. That's until I moved to London in the big smoke.
I love the fact that your first two jobs, quite instrumental in your career, were both through newspapers as well, through print media. Yeah. Fantastic.
It did work. I don't know how people do that anymore. It's definitely all online using guys like you to help us. But it did work.
And so you moved to London and started to develop your career there. And then again, you really felt that your career was moving then, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I mean, London is really exciting. And for a girl from somewhere that is exciting in a different way, it was a real eye-opener. Just even the commute, getting into the office. My brother laughs at me because I have an hour and a half each way. And he goes, why on earth do you spend an hour and a half each way? But I love my job. You've got to love what you do. It's got to feel like it matters. But it was a great place to be. Career got started, still in the business development and marketing space, but also my sort of journey. I'd met my husband. We had our first daughter. I had terrible postnatal depression. And this is 20 odd years ago when I didn't know, I'd never had a baby before. I didn't know that sometimes you didn't feel well, that you didn't take care of your own well-being. So that was a really good lesson for me. And I had amazing support, both from people at work, but from friends as well and family. And my daughter, she was 8 months before I realized that there was something actually not quite right. A friend from university had come down to visit and had said to my husband that I don't think Leslie's well. But immediately, the doctors and nurses and everybody sprung into action, and work was amazing. I had actually given up work. I decided that I was going to be a stay-at-home mum. I thought that's what society wanted me to do. I don't know why, because my mum worked, but it wasn't for me. It's not for everybody, and I respect those that make that choice and it works for them. But I love working, and when I'm happy, I think the family tend to be happy as well. So there are definitely benefits to being a working mum, I think, as well.
And thank you for sharing think that as well. I think it's a very powerful message to be able to share something so personal and vulnerable. And I know that will help many people that may be suffering from similar issues. And so you said that, the network pulled you in and started to help and support you. I think you mentioned also then that someone from work reached back out and said, let's get you back into the work environment.
I know. Well, I'd concluded that I was happiest working. It gave me my anchor, my foundation. It doesn't define me, but it is a really important thing to me. I want to feel I'm contributing to the world, contributing at home, sort of role modeling for my children. It's not a question of having it all, but it's just what works for us as a setup. And I think it's making good choices in terms of your life partner. I was very fortunate to have somebody who is an amazing partner who, encourages me as much as the next person to get on there and try it. But I wasn't happy. I said I wanted to go back to work, and he said, well, get back in touch. So I did. I got back in touch with my old boss at the time, Henrietta Jowett, and I said, would you give me a reference? I'm thinking of going back to work. And she basically said, stupid girl, come back here. So they made me a job, and I was just incredibly grateful to them. But also it was a great sort of realization that work doesn't end for people as well, that these relationships that you build over time are important. They're a great foundation in all of our lives. So people do genuinely want to help each other if they can. So I don't think
But only because of how you were, Leslie. As you say, you brought your whole self to work, didn't you? All the time, and still do now.
Yeah,
and that's recognised.
Yeah, I think it is, but you don't realise it at the time. Gosh, in the past when I was starting, I was terribly introverted. And I think people make assumptions because I'm ancient now, and you have to just sort of get out there, and it's part of the job. But I've had times that, with feedback was, well, I wish Leslie would speak up more in meetings.
But they don't say that anymore, Leslie.
No, they say the quite opposite now, Nikki. So it's just making sure that you trust your gut instinct, you listen to that inner voice. And what's the worst that can happen? Somebody disagrees with you. But I think, it's just trusting yourself, and that comes with age and confidence. And you just got to back yourself sometimes.
And isn't that also, you and I know talked about the networking piece, and one of the reasons why you think it's so essential to start networking earlier on in your career to help build those relationships with similar levels, and also to look at people that are more senior and be able to really learn from them as well, and to look for those sponsors and mentors. And that's something that you really advocate now, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think everybody should do it. I think whatever your role is in a business, you've got a part to play in driving the strategy of that business forward. I think it's just human beings like to be with human beings, and sometimes we forget that. And COVID changed things in some ways for the better and for not so good, but we've missed each other, I think, as well. And it is important just to make sure that, if I'm practically what I do is, if I'm in the office, tend to be in the office 3 or 4 days a week now, obviously not today, and I will make sure that I max out my day. So it might start with a networking breakfast, and networking becomes a sort of pompous term. You're just having a conversation with somebody.
Chatting to people.
And then I'll meet somebody after work. So if I'm in the office and I've got a long commute to get in and out, I want to make the most I can. When you and I were sort of chatted before, I do get teased because I genuinely wake up thinking that every day might be my last, and one day I will be right. But if you don't make every day count and think about what is it I want to change today, what is it I want to drive forward, then life just whizzes by. So I think you have to be focused, and people are a really key part in helping us deliver. We help each other deliver. So definitely maximize. Get there early as well in terms of these events, because if you are fairly shy, as I am, I thought if I turn up late, I could just blend in. But of course, you've got no one to speak to. So if you get there early, somebody has to speak to you.
Yeah.
So that's definitely what I've learned over time as well. It's a
great advice. Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned earlier that you had this thirst for knowledge, and you really love learning as well, and you love working with clever people. Now,
I do.
You then decided that you were going to head towards the law firms because you get lots of clever people in law firms. That was the next step in your career iteration, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I moved from Cushman and Wakefield to join Herbert Smith, as it was at the time. And I took my real estate experience through construction and the property sector and joined their real estate team to head up business development and marketing at Herbert Smith. And I loved it. I love the intellect of lawyers. I like the challenge of presenting them with evidence. I guess I am just genuinely interested in people. Yeah. And maybe the fact I chose business development and marketing as a career, that was always going to be the case, I think. But I want to try and get inside somebody's head and see how I can solve their needs before they even know they've got a problem. So, I got a kick out of that. And I loved Herbert Smith. It was an amazing opportunity. I worked with Ian Cox, who was in charge of the real estate team there. And he was just such an amazing sort of advocate and sponsor, would encourage you to be pushed out of your comfort zone in terms of projects or jobs or things like that you had to tackle, because I think he backed you and knew that you could do it. Yes, you make mistakes, but you don't keep making the same mistake and you learn. So I've been really lucky to work with some amazing people over this long number of years.
And I think one of the things that we talked about as well was, the importance for you of being able to concentrate on your work during the week. And you talked there, about making sure you maximise your days. We were 5 days in the office then, but you made sure that you had the quite clear definition of work week was going to be your work week, and your weekends was very much about your family, wasn't it then? But you
definitely
were able to build boundaries, which is really
that's still the case. I think you have to be sort of comfortable that boundaries are good for your own well-being. Probably when I was younger, I was trying to please everybody else, but then as I got older and less caring about having
wiser.
To do everything.
Let's call it wiser, Leslie.
I know. Yeah, it's wiser. That's it. I like nothing better than being home on a Friday night in my pajamas and just watching some rubbish on the telly and catching up with the family. So yes, work is when I'm in the office. That's what I do during the week, and then we bring around the weekends and make sure that holidays, family time, because I still love my husband and kids and want to spend time with them as well. So it is. It's really important, and you can have two, but you've got to both. But you've got to find the balance, I think, as well.
And how does that work in law firms, Leslie? Because you could have in your sort of roles as well, particularly in business development and marketing. If you needed. How have you managed to continue to hold those boundaries?
I've got a good husband. So that's what I mean. It is you have to make a conscious choice as how it's going to work. And a practical thing we did is he's an accountant and he loves his job. But we made a sort of conscious decision that we would each spend some time with the children. Either he'd go in early and I'd do the morning routine, or, at the other end of the day. Because otherwise for us, the girls are really important in our lives and we just wanted to spend time with them too. But so just being clear about how it's going to work, and then you don't also feel guilty or you don't feel sort of cross with the other person. And then we also did that when the girls were little. A Saturday morning was my time, so I could have a lie-in and do whatever I liked, and a Sunday morning was his time. But now the kids are grown up and we have to speak to each other now. So it's just as well we still like each other. So yes.
But it's about communication at work and at home, which is one of the keys, particularly in your role, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think legal has been, I love it. I love the sector. I think it's pretty progressive. I think it's dynamic. I think we are in a very privileged position to be helping clients, smart people. It just makes it really interesting.
Yeah.
If it was the same every day, I would get bored pretty quickly. I'm not sort of fluffing cushions type of person. It's got to feel that there is change and you can sort of help a lot with that. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic sector to be in.
Yeah, you definitely get that in law. And so you were coming towards the end, well, not necessarily the end of your time, but you decided there was an opportunity for you to think about going overseas. And that was something that you did consider, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. So still at Herbert Smith, it's when the merger happened with Freehills. And as a family, we'd made the decision that we were going to move to Sydney. My husband had given up his job. He'd trained up the person who was replacing him. We'd told the kids' schools. We'd told the bank because you had to have a different kind of mortgage. We had people in to paint the house so we could rent it. John said, that's my husband, that it was just all a ploy to get the house painted. That's what he thought. But we made the decision not to go. I was given an opportunity to do my first director role at a firm called Travers Smith. And that's what I really wanted to do. And I think it probably would have been easier to go in some ways because everything had moved. We were so far down the track. But I had a glass of wine with a friend and one evening after work, and he said, well, what are you doing? You know, if it's not what you want to do, make it stop. You can unpick it all. So I'm very grateful to him for that. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to tell my husband I don't want to go. So came home, thought, right, I'll just say I don't really want to go. I'd rather stay here. And he said, I didn't want to go either. I was only going because you wanted to. So we unpicked everything, and it was a really sort of interesting time because the interviews with Travers were happening as we were literally getting on a plane to go and find somewhere to live. So I didn't want to mess anybody around, and told the team at Travers, I really enjoyed meeting them, but they offered me a job quite quickly. So that made it sort of confusing, I think, in some respects, but also easy in other ways. I knew what I wanted. I wanted to move away from doing a sort of practice-based role to something a bit more strategic. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time with that firm very much.
Well, two things.
The international side.
I could understand that. But a really brave thing to do, as you say, when things have gone so far that you are even, about to step on a plane and move over there, to make a decision like that is incredibly brave, I think. And also, your husband sounds amazing. He's very supportive.
He's very nice. Yeah, he is. He is very nice. But we're a team. We are a team on things.
Which is important.
I think that's important. The girls were furious. But
I guess they were excited. They were probably excited. Thinking of the sunshine.
Anyway, it's worked out all right. It has worked out all right.
And you mentioned your time at Travers Smith, and I know again you really enjoyed working there and the calibre of people. But as you mentioned, you really missed the international exposure, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And I haven't really travelled very far because their office is literally just across the road from Charles Russell Speechlys. The commute is exactly the same. But yeah, I missed something slightly bigger, a slightly different challenge because Travers is very much a sort of more conventional in the type of its client base, whereas Charles Russell Speechlys is very much focused on private capital and so servicing a different, ultra high net worths and how they deploy and use their wealth, as well as, the business side of things as well. So it was a slightly different kind of platform to learn something new about. And I've loved it. This will be my 8th year at Charles Russell Speechlys. Absolutely love it.
And you've seen your career progress there.
Yes, I know.
Which is you haven't had to. I think I love the fact that you've gone to an organisation that you genuinely thought was going to be amazing, and it has been. And you've grown with the department and the firm, haven't you?
Yes, I have. So I joined. It was a few years after Charles Russell had merged with Speechlys Bircham. And when I joined, it was to do business development and marketing director role. It felt exciting. It felt like I'd come home. They're bright people. They've got amazing intellect, but they're really, really curious and emotionally intelligent. And it's about that good bedside manner, perhaps because of the type of clients they serve. It's not just transactional, it's advisory. You're going beyond just delivering the day-to-day legal advice. You're sort of getting involved in people's families, and it's just a really interesting dynamic. And the journey there was to work with the business development and marketing team initially to try and make sure that we were sort of reaching the clients that were yet to come on board, people that maybe knew about the firm or knew about different parts of it, but it was now a new and evolving firm. And I think that journey has got faster and faster as, we've got he's not a new managing partner anymore. Simon has been in role. He's just completed 1 term, and there's a real energy about the business and a renewed confidence in what we're doing. refreshing sort of strategic focus that we have around private capital, growing our offices outside of the UK. Yeah, it's a great place to be. And he, when he came in as managing partner, wanted to create the COO role. I think he thought 27 direct reports were probably not sustainable. So that in part it's practical as well. But I'm probably quite an unusual pick for a COO. My background is not finance, but for us as a business, that's not what it's about. It's not about trying to maximize the pound, shilling and pence. For us, it's about service excellence, client service excellence, and making that our USP, because there are lots of lawyers and clients of choice. But if we can focus on that, so he wanted somebody with a service focus across operations. So to me, it makes complete sense when it's explained like that. He's great to work with, the whole management team there. It's hard work, but it's good fun. No 2 days are ever the same. So, and we're going to be 10 this year. So it's our 10-year anniversary in November.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And how have you seen your COO role develop as well? Because I do think it's really interesting, a COO role in a law firm, and particularly when it's a background that's not from a legal background. It's a different feel about it. How is that evolving?
Yeah, well, I think I knew I was going to move into the role. So Simon's very clever. He got me to do 2 jobs, but with the same money for 8 months, and hadn't realised that. But just to make sure that it was something I really wanted to do, because I had 25 years experience in business development and marketing, you've got to be sure. I like problem solving. I like taking things apart and putting them back together. And I think a lot of that is, a COO role is dealing with inertia and trying to make things happen and, getting the roadblocks out of the way as well. So I've probably learned every day. I always do learn something different every day, but it is, I took a lot of time to do coaching, because I went from being a director with a peer group of directors to having to lead my peers. And it's a different kind of relationship that I think you have. But my conclusion, how I wanted to approach it, is I don't have to be an expert in any of these areas. I've got an amazing group of directors who are expert in their areas, and my job is to help them flourish. So they need the tools of the trade. They need me to back them. I give direction, but we've done quite a lot of work as a director team, making sure that we support each other. And our teams, when we think of them, aren't the functional teams. We think of we call them senior operational leads. We work as a team and how we can support each other. And it's changed. At the time of COVID, it was very much about keeping people safe, making sure that the business continued. None of us knew what was going to happen. And the business services people, in professionals in particular, were our sort of essential workers, our key workers. And I think the dynamic between those that are lawyers and those that are key workers, as they were, changed. And now we are sort of valued as business services professionals. But anybody who's on the business services side takes their responsibility really seriously. You don't take it for granted that you have a seat at the table. And if you have a seat at the table, you absolutely have to respect that. You've always got to be thinking how you can add value. You shouldn't be a passenger. You've got to be curious, and you've got to have that sort of mindset, I think. And then where we're at now in terms of the firm, as we head towards a big birthday, there has been a refresh of the firm's strategy, and Simon's job is the what we do. My job is how we do it. It's the implementation of that. So making sure that we've got the right skill set on the business services side to deliver that. So we're sort of future-proofing as best we can. The world's changing. AI is never off people's lips. And if we don't have the kind of skill set and resource that we think we might need in the future, that's what we've been actively pursuing in the market.
And I think that's a really good point, actually. Future-proofing businesses now, I think, is so many people. It's one of the key agenda points on most firm strategies, isn't it? Is how that's going to happen. How essential is it for you to ensure that not only is it future proofing, but it's also encompassing EDI and making sure that the right people are coming through to help take the firm to the next stage?
Yeah, I think maybe back to what I said at the very beginning, everybody matters. It's making sure that you give a platform, an opportunity for everybody to contribute. And that's what we try and do. We try and make sure that it is an even playing field as best as we can. I think there's a perception about law firms, and there certainly is a perception about firms that are in the private capital space, but that's not my reality. I think it is an amazingly dynamic and diverse business that we have. We're just at a certain stage of the whole cycle at the moment, but I look at the talent that's coming through. I'm doing the reverse mentoring scheme. I have an amazing mentor. I am learning so much from her every time we meet. But yeah, it's just giving people the chance and the opportunity. And it's that whole agenda is woven through everything that we do. It's a real sort of core principle of the firm, and making sure that we are living up to our responsibilities.
I love that. I love the fact, as you were saying, it's about this value add stuff all the time, isn't it, in business services, and almost being ahead of the curve of what may be asked, or really asking the proper questions around what do you need
anticipatory service is what I call it. It's thinking about what the problem is before whoever you're working with knows there's even a problem. And by that, I don't mean something's gone wrong. It's just being curious enough, caring enough, that you think, well, I think I can fix that if I do this bit over here and that bit over there. And giving it a go, being experimental, which again, maybe in some law firms isn't encouraged because it's very much about the right answer all the time. How are we ever going to grow as a business? How are we ever going to, have that entrepreneurial spirit, learn from our mistakes if you're not willing to encourage teams to do that? Don't get the law wrong, but, we have to, in terms of how we operate, we've got to sort of lead from the front as well on these things.
Yeah, be curious. I think that's a good way of phrasing it. I know you mentioned emotional intelligence there as well as part of what you think is essential to be really effective in business services in law firms. And also self-reflection is something that you talk about a lot, and something you encourage your teams to do as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We're so busy doing sometimes. We're human beings. So just meant to take some time out and be, I think, rather than do all the time. So yes, absolutely. And whatever works for you, however that self-reflection works, I think it's really important to build it into your week. Practically I put time in my diary for thinking. Or, it sounds daft, but otherwise your week will just whiz by. But you do have to take stock. What did I do well there? How could we improve this? And just put things into place to try and affect that change.
It's interesting you talked about coaching earlier as well, and that you felt that you wanted to have some coaching to be able to do that step up. Is that something that you think is really important, essential for one's own career path?
I think there are some who probably think coaching is offered if something's wrong. But if anybody says to me, do you want us to invest in you by giving this pot of money to somebody to help you, why would you say no?
Say hell yeah.
So I will always say yes, because you always get something out of it. But don't go into it if you feel it's being done to you. You've got to be an active participant in the whole process, because it's just about giving you more tools in your toolbox, or helping you oil the tools that you've had in your toolbox that you've forgotten about. So definitely anything to help you improve how you think or approach problems or how you interact with people, go for it. Absolutely go for it.
So your personal development is obviously very high on your agenda then, and as alongside the coaching, would you recommend, do you listen to podcasts, do you read books, what is it that gives you that extra value? It's apart from Leaders with Ambition, obviously.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a long commute, as we mentioned, so again I want to make every minute of that count, and if the Chiltern Railways are anything to go by the way they were this week, sometimes you have very long waits on the station. I will read, I will listen to podcasts, I'll listen to music some days. It just depends what the mood is and what your day looks like. I try and use that time as well for getting my head either ready for the work mode. So I'll pick my work head up at Marylebone, or I will leave my work head at Marylebone on the way home as well. So it's just being sort of using your time effectively, but always trying to learn something new. I'm really interested in what's happening in the world and how that might impact clients, but my colleagues. And I think we're all really incredibly lucky to be on the planet. So I want to make the most of it, just in case this is the last day.
Yeah, exactly. It's your mantra gone there. Okay. And what about this development and evolvement that you did from managing to leadership? And was that something that you were really conscious of? Or did you find that just as you developed more, that naturally happened?
I think when I have reflected on that, you absorb how you've been led or managed in the past. And even if it's not been great, because don't get me wrong, there have been times that it has been pretty challenging, but you flip that and you say, well, that's not how I would do it, or I will make sure that memory sticks with me and I would handle this in a different way. So it's a bit of both. It's a bit of sort of formal training and development as well, be it through development centres, assessment centres. I am a great one for weekend reading, so I will pull articles together I think are interesting and ping them onto the board or to colleagues, and just trying to sort of feed your mind, I think, as best you can. So it's probably a combination of things, but I think you've got to be active in it, in your personal development.
Yeah. I think it's so important, isn't it? It goes back to what you were saying about be curious, think about working really hard to achieve what you want to achieve in your career. And, know that you didn't probably leave Isle of Skye and think one day I'm going to be COO of a huge law firm, but on the way that happened. And then that was your goal. And you're a big goal setter, aren't you, around achievements?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, but my parents have always said, even when I was little and I'd play, whatever it was, I never played nurses. I always wanted to be matron. So, I mean, it's probably just how I'm wired.
I do think it's interesting because I think, when your parents, as yours, had their own business, and so you grew up, seeing how hard you have to work in your own business, and you can't have a sick day. It does change the way that you think about things.
It definitely does. It definitely does. And even at work, I will treat the firm's money as if it was my own. So making sure that you think like a business owner as well. You in a family business, small family business, you're in first, you're home last, you're worried about your people, you're worried about whether customers are going to come in through the door, but it's rewarding. There's definitely benefits there. Definitely. So it's making sure that you just don't settle. You continue to be brave and push yourself forward, I think.
Yeah, I think CRS need to say thanks to your mum and dad then, don't they?
My husband, probably.
And your husband, yeah, it sounds great. So what about the challenges that COOs are facing in law firms at the moment? What would you say are the biggest challenges? And when you get together with your peers that you discuss?
In some ways, I think the challenges are pretty similar across the sector, which is quite refreshing, because it can feel like you're the only one with these problems. But I think the COO networks that I've been part of, all the COO roles are different. And it depends on that relationship with the managing partner and how you want to make it work. So that's my first point around that. But we are all grappling with crises that seem perma-crisis, I think it's referred to, geopolitics. Yeah, there's all these big macro things. This year there are more elections than any other year on the planet. So it's a year for democracy. And the output of some of that will really have ripples, for all of us. We might not think it immediately, but it will have. And then at a sort of practical level, there's things that you're tackling, like how do we make sure the office is used as much as it needs to be, because that's a big expense. There are things around productivity and making sure that people are getting their work is being valued, because we know people are busy, but there's lots of challenges around that. People sometimes think they should do things quicker than they have done. But, it's just trying to make sure that you create an environment where people feel comfortable and they can perform at their best level. But also the firm has expectations, and it is a sort of contract that you have between each other, I think. Hybrid is, a constant battle, but I think it is the norm. We haven't struggled to get people back into the office. I think we quite like each other. So office occupancy was sort of 65% before COVID, and it's about the same. Fridays is tumbleweed, despite the fact they've reintroduced the battered sausage on a Friday. And it's the best reason for going in. But we're the same. We're sort of the same levels of occupancy as we were pre-COVID. So we haven't had to sort of force people, but we have a sort of framework. It's 60% of your working week. We would like people to be in office because that's how you learn, that's how you develop. We're social creatures. So yeah, there's lots of challenges, but there's definitely opportunities with each of those challenges as well.
Yeah, and it's being nimble enough to be able to think about challenges and think about solutions. As you were saying, you're already thinking about a solution before someone even raises a problem sometimes. So it's great to have that way
absolutely.
of thinking.
That's
your role,
what we try to do. And making sure the right people are around the table. It doesn't have to be the most senior person. Quite often people who are closer to the coalface have the answers. Everybody's brilliant at telling you what the problems are. But to solve a problem takes a team. So you've got to get the right team around the table, and everybody should have an equal share. It shouldn't just be, everybody looking at the senior person to give the answer. Yeah. That's not how we're going to fix anything. And we're not then creating sort of an innovative culture so that we can experiment and we can learn and develop, and we make that just a more exciting place to be. You need a reason for getting up and coming in.
Yeah, but innovation's at the heart of what you guys do as well, isn't it? I know that's something that you've recently brought on a person that's going to be specialising in innovation for outwardly facing, but it's something both in and out that you really consider innovation, which I think is great.
Yeah, I think it starts before that. I think the first step's creativity, and trying to have an environment where the creative juices can flourish and flow. Yeah. I think that's important. And, not having all the answers, but wanting to explore in a sort of design thinking type of way how you find the solutions to things. So, and then innovation takes that forward, but you need to have that idea. And it doesn't need to be something exciting. I mean, razor blades, shaving. I don't shave, although I am a certain age and things do appear. Shaving, the innovation there was just putting another blade in. Innovation how we used to buy lettuce, you bought a lettuce. Now it's all washed in a bag. That's innovating. That's, the sales of lettuce has gone through the roof. I'm sure lots of it gets wasted, but it has gone through the roof. So it doesn't have to be big things. It can just be little changes that we make as we progress.
Ripples, huge impact, don't they? Yeah. And you touched on AI. Is that something that is at the centre of the conversations that are happening in the firm at the moment? Is it something that's just naturally evolving?
No, but do you tell me, have you been to anything recently where people haven't talked about it?
No, I think that's the one topic of conversation and what's everyone else doing? Everyone wants to know.
I know. And so I'm trying to get up to speed and learn around that. It's a massive topic. It's not new.
Yeah.
This has been going on for decades and decades. But it's trying to see where it might go and not being fearful of it. So, what does that mean for the workforce of the future? How do we ensure that we hire people that have got the right skills in whatever discipline or professional side of the business they want to be in? You've got to hardwire some of that thinking into your operating model. We're particularly focused on the client side. So what is it that would make a client's life easier in terms of how we deliver legal services to them? So we're very fortunate to be joined by a new colleague who's going to help us in that space over next weeks, months and years, hopefully.
Yeah, really
because clients want to know how it's going to impact. Nobody's got all the answers, but let's just make a start about our thinking and how we're going to do that.
And I think that your point about not being fearful is so right. And AI is not going to replace us, but the people that don't know how to use AI will become replaced. So it's about being open to it all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there will be changes, but there'll also be opportunity, I think.
Yeah.
Opportunities to do things that are maybe more interesting in terms of work and what appears in your inbox. I don't think it's something to people always want to see other people.
I agree with you. I think the relationship piece will actually become even more important. Yeah. It's already important, particularly in professional services firms and law firms, isn't it? But it'll get even more important. And that's what AI will do, is free time up to enable people to have more time to have one-on-one contact or team contact or build relationships.
Yeah. So I agree. I think the future's pretty exciting in that respect.
Yeah. Future's bright, as they say. And what about your highlights, Leslie? What would you class as being your highlights? Because there's been lots along the way. Make you feel uncomfortable now.
Yeah. Feeling I'm making a difference, adding value. Yeah, I think the people that I've worked with, I'm really lucky to have worked with some amazing people who've helped me along the way, and hopefully who I've helped along the way as well. So yeah, I think it's making a difference. I think but the people side and seeing folk flourish in their careers, I really get a buzz out of that. So that's been great to see.
Well, you are a people first leader, which I think is that's a differentiator. You want to get good people to work for you, as you were saying, and you want those good people to become great in their own careers and in their own capacity.
Absolutely.
Don't you?
Otherwise, what's the point? Who wants to wake up in the morning and be average?
Yeah.
Well, today I think I'm going to be average. Or today I'm not going to bother. Who does that? Many people do, but I certainly don't work with any of them at Charles Russell Speechlys. I wouldn't want to.
I don't think they'd make it through the door, would they? I think you'd be. And what about words of wisdom, Leslie, for you to share for people that are looking at either developing their careers or people that are listening in the Isle of Skye that are thinking, wow, she sounds amazing. How can I do that?
No, heavens. Be brave, back yourself, ask for the job. Don't assume that everybody else is a mind reader. So if there's something you want to do, you need to tell somebody and work out a plan. And if it's not something that they see in your future, that's all right too. But
you want to know, then you can plan, can't you? Yeah.
Yeah. You want to feel whatever you do matters. I think you do anyway. Otherwise, what's the point? It's existing. Yeah. It's not living. So, just get out there and back yourself.
Love that. Well, I think great words of wisdom to finish our conversation on there. Back yourself and strive forward. And, as you say, ask things. And, if you're not going to be able to achieve it, then better to know so that you can then put things in place to look at what your next steps could be. But be open to
equally
to learn.
It is. It's taking the feedback as well and not being a sort of fool in a china shop around it. It's not bludgeoning people to death. It's sort of reading the room and just you adjusting and pivoting as well as you go forward, I think.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed the conversation. And, lots of takeaways come from that as well. I think your networking piece, making sure that you get there early, which for most people is a big fearful thing. As you say, maybe we don't call it networking, we call it meeting people or talking to people.
Yes.
But, you get there first and really think about the connections that you're making that could also help you in your future. I think the importance of hard work from a young age and throughout all of your roles and all your iterations, and that really does come back to pay things forward because people invest in you as well and want to invest. And I love your leadership and mentality around getting good people to work for you and helping them become even better and allowing them to find their true paths and calling as well, which is really strong. So thank you so much for your time today, Leslie.
Thanks for asking me, Nikki.